Hey guys, what's up? Inksmith back again, and today we're covering a YouTuber who you may or may not be familiar with. These days he's kind of fallen off in popularity, but a while back and during the time of Primic, he was known as the Rewired Soul. Somebody who started out by doing simple life hacks, things that were non-controversial and very simple as to how to speed up certain aspects of your life and get shortcuts to being more efficient, and then eventually getting into all sorts of psychological diagnosis, something that Chris, the creator of Rewired Soul, has no background in. After he got into that, he noticed a jump in his popularity and began diagnosing the psychological state of many influencers and movie stars. This is something that blew his channel up until finally his diagnosis of random people was questioned by some major YouTubers who were not too happy about his constant diagnosis and supposed positive spin on how that person could get better while having no certificate, degree, diploma, or background in said subject of psychology. By commenting on the lives of other YouTube personalities, grew his mental health YouTube channel to nearly 100,000 subscribers, but now it's dipped to about 80K. His videos were meant to entertain and educate viewers on important topics in psychology, but his tactic of using other YouTubers as example without their permission drew a lot of ire from the community. So much so that multiple YouTube creators finally took the time to call this guy out, with a multitude of them coming forward and complaining about his diagnosis. Here are some samples of that now.
Because for me, his videos went from actually discussing about mental health problems and solutions, and it became more about spreading gossip and tea. So because of this, he started to create almost fake drama using YouTubers' names, and he creates somewhat of a false narrative with these people. A lot of the times he makes the drama out of thin air, and he has 65 videos on Shane Dawson, 45 videos on Jake Paul, 16 videos on Tana Mojo, 15 videos on Trisha Paytas. It goes on and on. At some point, it becomes kind of obsessive. Just imagine, some random guy on the internet making 65 videos on how you need to get help in therapy or about how your relationships are failing.
So imagine on the flip side that you are an influencer and you have had this extremely public intervention between the Rewired Soul and the rest of his subscribers. Now, the Rewired Soul is conducting these very public interventions without actually knowing the support network that the influencer or individual may have behind them.
I don't want people to know my current mental health state.
Yep.
When people are constantly about how bad your mental health is, when you're doing okay, it makes you feel worse. Yep.
The more a channel grows, the more it attracts criticism, and the Rewired Soul found himself at the center of a controversy back in, I'd say, January 2017, I believe a lot of this went down. Then YouTube personality Trisha Paytas posted a video criticizing the Rewired Soul for making so many videos about her, including speculating over whether she should be in a relationship with fellow YouTuber Jason Nash. She said, quote unquote, "It pisses me off so much. He does so many videos about me and Jason and our relationship as if he's a relationship expert." Paytas says in the video, he does judgments just by looking at our videos. He acts like he's such an expert. It's honestly dangerous and honestly unhealthy. Now, I know a lot of my viewers are on two different sides and very divided about Trisha Paytas, but guys, she's pretty right in this situation. We are YouTubers. Unless we actually have some sort of background or education in psychology, we cannot simply look at 5 to 20 minutes of a person's life and diagnose what's going on. Not only that, a lot of people doing YouTube are using a personality for YouTube, which means we're not really seeing who they are.
This is one aspect that really ticked off Trisha Paytas, and this is what she had to say about that.
Like, he does so many videos about me and Jason and our relationship as if he's a relationship expert. It's like you have a child, you're not married to that mom, you have another girlfriend that's, do you know what I'm saying? And he acts like his is so perfect. And like, just looking at him, you know, he does judgments just by looking at our videos, and just by looking at his videos, not his physical appearance, just like looking at his videos and looking at him, and it's like he looks tired, he looks worn out, like he acts like he's such an expert, and it's honestly dangerous, and it's honestly unhealthy to tell people to like. And he always says, "I'm not trying to diagnose, and I'm not saying this," but it's like you're saying.
But this is something we don't know about every YouTuber for the most part, unless something is reported by the police or something is outed by some sort of deep investigation that comes back with sources, receipts, and proof. We really don't know a lot about the YouTubers we watch. Other YouTubers like Dustin Daly, Ashley Kyle, and Viewer's Voice also posted similarly critical videos of Chris in his Rewired Soul channel. According to his critics, who are unhappy with the fact that he is not a professionally licensed psychologist, he is running a gossip channel dressed up as the guise of a mental health advocacy channel and profiting by milking the drama of other people's personal lives. Now, since that point, Chris, the Rewired Soul, has privated a lot of his videos. And of course, this brings a classical ethical dilemma around mental health into the digital realm and reveals the challenges around finding an appropriate way to mix mental health education and make money on a largely unregulated platform like YouTube. Now, my personal, and I guess I would say subjective belief, as I don't have a lot of sources to back it up, is that if you are going to talk about things psychologically, then you need to actually have the accredited and certified need of education behind it. For example, Dr. Grande, a guy who diagnoses a lot of psychological problems for his main job, he then goes on YouTube and says, "I'm not diagnosing the person, I'm merely speculating on their mental health." And when he does it, a lot of people have a lot more respect because this guy has over 30 years of experience of actually working a job in the field of psychology. So we don't just take what he says with a grain of salt. We realize, first of all, he's saying don't take this as 100% fact. Do realize I am speculating. Whereas Chris approached everything as though he were a legit source. And not only just a legit source, but the end of the conversation as far as psychology was concerned. This means when he would start his videos, not only would he start them with a very racy title such as "I'm worried about so-and-so," or "this person is most likely an abuser," or "this person is controlling this person." You can't really start your video by saying that or calling it that when you don't personally know the people you're talking about and you're not certified to psychologically diagnose any of them. I even, with my own videos, sometimes stay away from doing anything that gets into any kind of mental labels. Like, there's been times where I've used the word psycho or crazy, and even those in the titles, I'm very, very cautious with how and when I use it. If I am going to use those, in most cases, I make sure it's not something super serious. I also make sure that if it is something that gets into the realm of psycho or crazy, it's something that has actually been diagnosed or something that has actually been said within the news articles that I'm reading. And then I'm quoting those sources and not making it my own diagnosis. There are times I have speculated, and I remember doing that a few times in the earliest videos I made about creep show art. But at the same time, before I said any of that, I made sure to make a disclaimer that, look, this is not me actually diagnosing it. And I actually even use Dr. Grande's example of the samples that I was using within the personality type, because I knew myself, I did not have the regulatory background to diagnose as such. So it's been a good 3 to 4 years after all this has gone down, and you're probably wondering why I made this video today about the downfall. Well, in my Where is Primnick video, where I talked about missing Primnick and hoping that he comes back to YouTube to make more stuff, one commenter left a comment that said, well, his videos really worked against the Rewired Soul. He only gets about 100 views now. And I thought, That's probably an over-exaggeration, but I do think he had a pretty good video calling out the Rewired Soul. Let me check out what kind of views he's at these days. And oh my gosh, that viewer was right. The Rewired Soul is down to a couple hundred views per video, an 80K plus channel, down to 100 to 200 views. And all of his videos have kind of changed over to where he's no longer trying to diagnose any YouTubers on the internet at all anymore. Instead, it turns out he's kind of gone into a podcast format and decided to interview the writers of psychology books. And on top of that, if you don't know, he has written his own ebook. Now, this was another controversial thing that he did, and a lot of people didn't get to talk about this. Apparently, he decided to write his own ebook on psychology. A man with no degree or certificate or background in psychology decided to write a book on it. And influencer, drama, and YouTube combined. All those things crossed into one ebook. He started out by listing this book as free for his viewers. Then he started to charge for it. Then he got a backlash, and then he made it free again, and now he's still charging for it again the last time I checked, which it's totally odd. First of all, who would be interested in his advice as far as psychology is concerned? I'm not sure what kind of insight he has unless he wants to call it the big book of pseudoscience. I'm not really sure why anybody would be interested in his word on psychology. On top of it, I'm not sure why he thought making videos interviewing other writers of psychology books would also be a big grandstand to come back to YouTube. He did take a break for a while and then made a video called I'm Back and went into this whole podcast format where he started to interview other writers. And I tried listening to one of these and it's just, I don't know, how do I explain? It doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't have the depth or the education or the background or the know-how of a lot of psychology, and it shows even more when he interviews some of these people who actually are experts and do have backgrounds in it. And the questions kind of go nowhere. He draws a lot of blanks when he tries to come up with new things to ask people. He repeats a lot of questions over and over again that are the same for every single person. I mean, there's some things that you can repeat, like tell me a little bit about yourself or tell me about your background, which you've got to start with every introduction of anybody you interview. But there's other things where you're kind of like, this isn't even in the same realm of psychology. Why are you asking this, Chris? And those videos are getting only about 200 views, or maybe after they've been out for years, 500, which, yikes. I mean, you know, I get it that there was a bit of a backlash. I get it that he kind of had a deserved outcome for how he treated a lot of the psychology of other YouTubers, especially due to the fact that he kind of abused making 65 plus videos about people that they didn't ask for. You know, I feel like even sometimes when I make 2 or 3, or maybe even with the Creepshow Art one where I made probably about, God, I don't know, 6 or 7, I was going too far at some points, but there was a 131-page document to go through, so it did give me a lot to analyze, so I did have a big video to make. But with Chris, it was almost to a point of obsession. Like, he couldn't get over how much views and likes and upvotes he got on these videos. On top of it, when I say views and likes and upvotes, now that I say that, I think back and he actually turned his likes and dislikes off way before you could do that. And he would have them turned off for every video so that he never had to deal with any kind of backlash from the fans of those different YouTubers. I don't know, man. I've never seen a career flail so bad. I think if Chris had just been very honest, if the Rewired Soul had just been very honest with his background and letting people know that he's not into doing a psychological analysis, that he merely wants to discuss what the situation currently is, rather than try to come across as some sort of expert in something that he's not an expert in, he would have had a chance. In fact, he could have kept going with talking about influencers and YouTubers. I think he just needed to peel back the layer of psychology and just talk straight about what he thought about their situation. There's a lot of times where I speak about people And I tend to never step my foot into diagnosing any sort of psychological or mental illness going on. I feel like that is outside of my realm. And I also feel like it's better just to talk about the things we have proof of. For example, if there's a police report, I'll talk about that. If there's some sort of legit receipt that we can pull up and look at together, I'll look at that. But for the most part, I'm not going to try and say, oh, they deserve to be in a mental ward because obviously they're completely psychotic and crazy. That's not something for me to diagnose. Another thing I was unaware of until I watched Dr. Grande do an analysis video of the Rewired Soul was the fact that Chris, the Rewired Soul, says most psychologists are turning away patients, and they're also telling them not to partake in the 12-step program. Now, this was something new I had never heard about before and was actually something Primic didn't cover in his video. I didn't know he was saying stuff like this, but Dr. Grande went into this because this was the main part that really bothered Dr. Grande. He said, I'm not here to judge his personality. I'm not here to judge his character. I'm not even here to make any kind of mental diagnosis, even though I have the background to do that. What upset me the most about watching his videos was his statement that a lot of counselors, psychologists are turning people away and also telling them not to go to 12-step programs. If you don't know 12-step is usually the AA or 12 steps within the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. It's a program that leads you through a way to rehabilitate and get off whatever you're addicted to. For some people, it works really well. Others have talked about it not helping them. It's really a very subjective way to look at rehab. For some people, it works really well. For others, it doesn't. But if it works for some, then it's still an optional use. And on top of it, he doesn't understand what the proof is behind Chris, the Rewired Soul, saying that people are being turned away by this. He said, as far as I know, this is not a trend that us as psychologists follow. None of us are turning people away. He said, in fact, even, I recommend the 12-step program for people who are trying to rehabilitate themselves. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I don't know why Chris is saying that we're turning people away from it, because we're not. That's not something I advise or any of the other people I have within this peer-reviewed field. On top of it, he talked about how many psychologists abuse the fact that they can make a lot of money from what they do, and that they'll only take on patients they want and turn away any of the major cases that they don't want to deal with. And again, Dr. Grande was like, I don't know what this guy is talking about. There are certain psychological aspects I'm not a perfect expert in, so maybe I'll refer them to somebody else, but I rarely ever turn people away just because I don't want to deal with them. It's just part of the job. He said, if you say big statements like this, you need some kind of source or something to back it up. And he said in the 30 years of doing his job and reading anywhere from 5 to 10 articles a week that monitor the study of psychology and psychological analysis and other within his peer group as far as his career is concerned, he has found zero proof of this happening, of this being a trend, or the 12-step program being turned away by a lot of psychologists. And he said, I do not know where he gets this information from, and this is something that can be very damaging. Why could it be damaging? Because this may make some people think that, oh, maybe I'm too damaged to even go to a psychologist. They might be one of these people that turns me away. I guess I'll just watch Chris's YouTube channel to get my own psychological analysis. Thanks, Rewired Soul. That's not something good to propagate within the YouTube community. We have enough problems with people trying to be pseudoscientists and pseudo-intellectuals as far as psychology is concerned. We don't need him adding to other people turning away from actual professionals. So, where is Chris at these days? Well, like I said, he's got his podcast going where he unexpertly interviews other people writing books about things he doesn't completely understand, which isn't really a recipe for success. You can't really peer evaluate or interview someone within a field that you yourself don't work in. That would be very silly. It would be like me doing interviews with people programming software, I'm not a great programmer. I don't know a lot about it. And if I tried to interview people, I would be way out of my league and not even know the lingo or the lexicon that revolves around these different studies and things like that. So why Chris has decided to do this, I don't understand. Could he ever make a comeback? Maybe, but there is a lot of fault that needs to be admitted by the Rewired Soul. He needs to come forward, look back at his past, kind of, I guess, have a come to God moment where he says, this was ruthless and not needed for the YouTube community to be doing these psychological analysis. What I did in the past was damaging. This was not good or healthy or helping anyone. Me pretending that I was, a victorious champion of mental health, and that's why I was looking at these people, was in fact very faulty and a crumbling ambition that would have never worked. If I come back and I want to analyze people, I should merely analyze them by the sources that actually exist online. For example, like I said, police reports, things like that. You can report on those things. You can talk about the misdeeds people do without having to go into a deep psychological analysis to try and virtue signal. That's unneeded. And if he came back and did that, I think he'd still have a chance. But I don't really foresee that happening. I don't think he's the kind of person who will come back and admit major defeat and restart from square one. What do you guys think? Did you guys ever watch his channel? I remember watching it way back in the day about his Shane Dawson videos and thinking like, well, I remember just being like, well, what's this guy's background? How is he coming to these ideas? Is this guy, I thought surely he must be within the career of a psychologist or at the very least a social worker or something. And when I found out that he had absolutely no background, I was astounded. I thought, why is this guy talking about this then? This is way out of his league. This is not something he should be trying to grasp, handle, or explain to other people when he himself has not gone into a field of study for it. How do you guys feel about it? Do you think what he did was really wrong? Do you think he has a chance to come back? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, I've been the Inksmith. I hope you have a great rest of the day.